A man online figured it would take him 17 years to save up for a house. It was actually about two and a half. He was looking at a $400,000 starter home in his area. He assumed he needed 80 grand for the down payment. He's saving around $400 a month. He did the math and got 17 years, and he posted it like a life sentence. I went to reply, lost the post, and then I realized the assumption he made isn't just his. It's the one almost everyone makes, and it's keeping a lot of people out of the game before they even get in. So that's what this is, what it actually takes to buy a house. And then the harder question, which is whether you should. I'm also going to tell you what happened to my own insurance in 5 years because it changed how I think about owning anything. Let's start with the number because the number is wrong. First-time homebuyers do not need 20% down. That assumption keeps more people out of the game than anything else I can think of. Now, most people have heard of FHA, the Federal Housing Authority loan, and it's 3.5% down. On a $400,000 house, that's $14,000 instead of $80,000. Already a completely different conversation. But when I bought my first home, I didn't use FHA. I use a conventional loan that only requires 3% down. And for most people, that's the better deal. Conventional 97, home ready, and all of them 3% down. On a $400,000 house, that's $12,000. And his $400 a month, that's about 2.5 years, not 17. Now, here's why conventional beats FHA, and this is the part nobody explains. Both of them require mortgage insurance when you put down less than 20%. That's the price of getting in the door early. The difference is whether it ever goes away. On a conventional loan, that insurance cancels. You can request it once you have 20% equity in your home, and it comes off automatically when the loan is worth 78% of the home's value. On an FHA loan with less than 10% down, you pay that mortgage insurance for the life of the loan, not until you hit 20% equity, not at 50%, the entire time you own the house. The only way out is refinancing into a completely different loan. Over 7 years, a conventional borrower with decent credit typically saves $8,000 to $12,000 in insurance premiums alone. Same house, same down payment, different paperwork. Now, FHA still earns its place. If your credit is under 620 or your debt to income is high, FHA is more forgiving on both, and it might be your best option. But if you've got a 620 or better, ask your lender about 3% conventional before you sign anything. And let me give you the whole truth because I'm not here to sell you a house. Closing costs are another 2 to 5%. On a $400,000 house, that's another $8,000 to $20,000 on top of your down payment. But sellers can contribute toward it. And there are programs built exactly for this, but you need to budget for it. So the money is more reachable than you've ever been told, and there are more expensive versions of the same loan. Which one you sign matters for as long as you own the house. And there are programs designed to help you get there even faster. There are programs for teachers, for first responders, for veterans. If home ownership is a goal for you, it's worth 10 minutes of searching to find out what you qualify for, because most people never look. But the one I'd point anybody to is NACA, the Neighborhood Assistance Corporation of America. It's a HUD-approved nonprofit, no down payment, no closing costs, no mortgage insurance, and a below-market fixed rate. There's no income limit. The focus is low to moderate income buyers or people buying in low to moderate income areas, but it's open to everybody. And they don't look at your credit score. They look at whether you actually pay your bills on time. Now, the honest part, it is slow. There's required counseling, required workshops, and ongoing participation in the organization. This is not a program you rush. And it's primary residence only. No rentals, no investment properties, which matters. And I'm going to come back to why. So if the down payment was the only thing stopping you, it might not actually be the thing stopping you. This is why I think can I afford it is the wrong question altogether. The right question is whether it's even worth doing. And I want to answer that in the way I'd answer it for the women I write for, because the calculation looks different when you're a Black woman deciding whether to buy. Home ownership is the thing we were told closes the gap. One generation buys, the next generation inherits, and that's how the ground finally shifts under a family. That's not a small idea. That's the whole promise. And there are reasons to want it that have nothing to do with returns. A landlord can't discriminate against you in a house you own. Can't raise your rent past what you can pay. Can't decide your neighborhood is worth more without you in it. I live in New Orleans. I don't need to explain to anybody here what it means to be priced out of a place your family has been for 4 generations. Those reasons are real, and I'm not arguing with a single one of them. What I'm arguing with is buying a house because you think it's an investment, because those are two different reasons and they lead to two very different decisions. So let's talk about the trade offs honestly, starting with the one everybody repeats. You've heard that renting is throwing money away. I want to show you why that's not true. The pitch goes something like this: when you rent, your money goes to a landlord and you get nothing. When you own, every payment builds equity. Renting is a leak and owning is a savings account. Here's the truth: most of your mortgage payment gets thrown away too. It just goes to a bank instead of a landlord. Interest, property taxes, insurance, none of that builds a dollar of your equity. And in the early years of a 30-year loan, the overwhelming majority of what you pay every month is interest. You are renting money from a bank. Then add what nobody counts: maintenance and repairs, which don't show up as a line item. They show up as a $4,000 surprise on a Tuesday. Furniture because the new place is bigger, renovations because you finally can. When you own, you spend more. The paint, the backsplash, the yard. There's nothing wrong with any of that. It's your house. That's the whole point. But let's be honest, it's money that's going out the door and it's not coming back. Now, let me give you the strongest argument on the other side because it's a real one. Rent goes up, your mortgage doesn't. Someone who bought in 2019 is paying the same principal and interest today that they were paying back then, while the person next door has watched their rent climb every single year. That is a genuine advantage, and I'm not going to wave it off. But hold that thought, because there's a piece of it nobody tells you, and I'm about to show you exactly what it cost me. Owning a home does give you things: stability, control over your own space, the pride of ownership, which is real, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend it isn't. Just don't confuse those things with a return. Renting isn't throwing money away, it's paying for housing. So is a mortgage. The difference between them is a lot smaller than you've been told. Let me tell you what nobody puts in the calculator. I own my home here in New Orleans. When I bought it in 2021, my homeowner's insurance was around $2,000 a year. Flood was $400. So call it $2,400 all in. This year, homeowners is $4,200. Flood is $1,300. $5,500, more than double in 5 years. And I need you to hear this part. I'm in an X flood zone. That's the lowest risk flood designation. That's the good zone. That's the one you want. $5,500 a year is $458 a month, which is more every single month than the man in that post is able to save for his down payment. So remember what I just said about rent going up and your mortgage staying the same? This is the part they leave out. Your mortgage payment is fixed. Your insurance and property taxes are not. Mine went up by more than $3,000 a year, while my mortgage didn't move a dollar. Your payment stays the same is only true about the piece of the payment that stays the same. And here's what it actually cost me. I teach that financial freedom is about 25 times your annual expenses. That's your freedom number. That's what you need invested before your money can carry your life instead of you carrying it. So $5,500 a year in insurance adds $137,500 to my freedom number, not to the price of my house, the amount I have to have invested before I can stop working. That's not a housing cost. That's a freedom cost. And it's the reason I stopped thinking about a house as an asset and started thinking about it as an expense I happen to live inside. Now, let's talk about the advice to leverage your home as an asset. The popular version comes from David Bach's Finish Rich. Trade up every few years, turn each place you leave into a rental, and build yourself a portfolio. I've actually done this. So let me tell you how it really goes. Last time I moved, I rented my place out instead of selling it. And that was the right call, but not for the reason people usually give. It's because I've done it the other way around before. I sold, I moved, and when I came back, I couldn't afford to buy in that same neighborhood anymore. Selling a house is relatively easy. Getting back into that neighborhood is not. So this time around, I kept it. And here's what actually happened. I got lucky. I had a realtor I trusted completely, and she handled all of it: the marketing, the showing, Screening the tenant, that's not a small thing, and most people don't have it. It's also a nicer property, so the maintenance was more manageable. Manageable, not nothing. And when I moved back in, there was damage to the walls and the floors, even with good tenants, even with everything going right. But here's the part that matters most. The rent barely covered the mortgage. It rarely covered the maintenance and the repairs on top of it. So when somebody tells you a rental property pays for itself, understand what they're actually describing. Best case tenant, a property in good shape, somebody competent managing it for you, and it still came out roughly even. I wrote a whole piece on this on my Substack if you want to go deeper. I'll link it below. And remember what I said about NACA, primary residence only. Most of the programs with the best terms usually are. The rental empire doesn't get the good loan. So the real question is opportunity cost. What else could that same money do over that same amount of time? If it's purely about the money, the index fund wins. It isn't close. That's why J.L. Collins has written extensively that your house is a terrible investment. He's not against owning a home. He's against calling it an investment because it doesn't behave like one. So let's go back to the original poster. $400 a month is a 4% withdrawal rate. That's somewhere between $6,000 and $8,000 a year for the rest of his life. And he still owns the whole thing. Now, let me give you the counter argument because there are two good ones. The first is that you have to live somewhere. If he invests that money instead of buying, he's still paying rent. So this was never a clean comparison. That's fair. I'm not telling you the index fund houses you. I'm telling you it's a piece nobody puts on the table. The second is leverage. He controls a $400,000 asset with $12,000 down. Nobody is going to lend you $388,000 to buy index funds. That's real, and it's the strongest financial case for buying. And I'll give you a third one because it's the one I actually respect the most. A mortgage is forced savings. Most people say they'll invest the difference and then don't. A mortgage doesn't care whether you're disciplined this month. It builds your equity anyway. I teach this all the time. Most money problems aren't discipline problems. They're design problems. And a mortgage is a design. It's a decision you make once that keeps on working when you're not paying attention. So if the choice is between owning a home and intending to invest, own the home. But if you're actually going to automate the investing, that's a different conversation. And it's the one most people never get to have. And here's the version I actually believe in. A paid off house lowers your freedom number. Housing is the biggest line in almost anybody's budget. Take it out, and 25 times a much smaller number is a much, much smaller number. That's the case for owning a home that actually holds up. And notice it has nothing to do with appreciation. It's not about what the house is worth. It's about lowering the cost of your life. So it's not that owning is wrong. It's that owning for the wrong reasons is expensive. So here's the decision rule I'd actually give you. Buying and selling a house costs around 8 to 10% round trip, which means if you're not staying at least 5 years, the math usually doesn't work. Sell within that window and you will probably lose money. So if you want to live somewhere for 10 years or more and buying doesn't wreck your ability to invest, buy it for the stability, for the control, because you want to. Those are good enough reasons on their own. But if you're buying a house because you think it's an investment, run the numbers first with the insurance in there and the taxes and the maintenance and the mortgage insurance you might be paying for 30 years. And if you've never calculated your own freedom number, that's honestly where I'd start. It's the first thing I walk you through in my free 5-day email course. Link is in the description. free.pariswoods.com. I'm not against home ownership. I'm in favor of going into life decisions clear-eyed with all the facts in hand. Start with the end in mind. If freedom is the goal, if control over your labor and your time is the goal, there is a simpler and more fulfilling path to get there. Today is a beautiful day to be free.